New Zealand team, Jordan at fullback, Varley and O'Hara on the wings, Philippina and Williams in the centres, John Smith 5'8", Ken Sterling halfback and captain, Mark Graham is the lock forward for New Zealand. In the second row, Colin Prome, and the front row, Lindsay Proctor, Alan Rushton and Ray Baxendale. A comment from Johnny Brown.
A lot will depend on the first 15 minutes in this match. As Arthur said, this is a vital match for New Zealand. They must win this to keep the series alive. If the Australian pack is dominating play, well, then he can use this to advantage and link up with his pack. But if the New Zealanders are on top, then they can cut the ball off from the two dangerous centres. And I think this is where the danger is to New Zealand, Cronin and Rogers. They're the two danger men, but if New Zealand can contain Australia in the pack and turn the ball back in, then they have a chance.
Australia, led by Bobby Fulton, the 5'8", getting a big round of applause from this crowd of about 16,000. Dorothy at fullback, Bowstead and Glover on the wings, Cronin and Rogers in the centres. Bobby Fulton 5'8", Oliphant from Queensland, playing in his first test match as regards first on the field in the top 13. Greg Oliphant at halfback. Price is the lock forward. It's Ray Price, Rod Reddy and Greg Platts in the second row. Greg Platts, of course, also from Toowoomba in Queensland, having his first test match, and Olling, Donnelly and Lang in the front row. Referee for the match is Eddie Ward. And it's Australia from the southern end with Cronin starting play deep into New Zealand territory, where the halfback Sterling sends it on to his hooker up alongside of him in support, Rushton. New Zealand 15 metres out in their own line. There's the big man Proctor, the biggest man in the New Zealand lineup, at 17 stone and about 6'3", as the ball is swung back to the centre. Williams putting it over the halfway mark. Trouble for the Australian winger. Players offside there as the Australian player races through to pick it up, and it's Olling in the front row. So play on the halfway mark with Oliphant sending it to Greg Platts, the brother of Lou Platts, the other Australian international from Toowoomba or from the Darling Downs area, as Donnelly comes through with it. Lou Platts, of course, is playing in the Sydney competition this season. 15 metres inside New Zealand territory as Oliphant sends it on to the second row forward, Rod Reddy. Some very heavy defence early in the game.
Yes, New Zealand tearing into it, and that's good to see.
Donnelly. The fifth tackle indicated from referee Eddie Ward. Now Fulton, and there goes the bomb. A lot of pressure on fullback. Dorothy was flying through too, and referee indicating that the
offside. Dorothy
play,
was
yes,
in front of Fulton when he kicked the ball. There's no doubt about that. There was about a metre in it. And
this is the Sterling, the New Zealand halfback. Rushton's up there to distribute the ball as he gives it on to his second row forward in Prome. New Zealanders moving the ball to lock forward Mark Graham this time, about 18 metres out from their own line, to Rushton the hooker, spinning it across to Proctor. Plenty of tacklers in there for Proctor, including Reddy, and an Australian player left on the ground looked to be Johnny Lang. No, it wasn't, in fact, it was the lock forward Price. Gathered, Glover having trouble with it, but manages to pull it down eventually. And this is Dorothy. John Dorothy in his first test match, a couple of metres short of the halfway mark. Oliphant's there. Outside of him is the second row already. John Lang in the dummy half position. And this is Olling. Lang, Oliphant and Fulton kicking for the line. A good kick from Fulton too. It runs into touch on the New Zealand quarter line. It's Australian ball out to Fulton, further to Cronin, then into the fullback, up into the line. Out it goes to Rogers and on to Glover. Bending down to pick it up. Glover showing great speed and flying for the corner, and Glover dives, and there's the first try of the match. Australia leading 3-0.
He came in to make the extra man. Fulton standing and passing. Dorothy in. He just draws the man and moves it on. Exceptional backline play and a good run here by Glover, showing determination, getting around his opposite and out-sprinting the defence.
And Cronin in for the kick. Very long kick indeed. It's a good attempt. It waved away. It wasn't far away. Australia leading New Zealand by 3 points to 0 after just over 4 minutes of play. Williams to restart play. Very deep kick to Australian territory to Dorahy. Proctor and company, the tacklers, and Proctor giving Dorahy a little bit of the treatment there. The roar from the crowd in the tackle as it comes onto the front row forward, Donnelly. And look at the New Zealand forward swarming into Donnelly to put him down. John Lang's up into the dummy half position on the Australian quarter line. As it goes to Oliphant, running onto the ball, Olling. Very tough Sydney prop, and passed the ball when he was effectively held, apparently, and it's a penalty to New Zealand. Gordon, the kicker, the New Zealander, trying to put first points on the board for New Zealand, and the flags are up, and Australia lead New Zealand by 3 points to 2 after 6 minutes of play. Cronin to restart play. Sterling taking it very carefully before handing it on to his fullback. Rushton, the hooker's up in the dummy half position, and running onto the ball is Baxendale. Rushton, now Proctor's turn. Rushton, Sterling, New Zealand captain, caught fairly quickly, but slipping it back to his hooker, Rushton. Australians tackling very well. Second row, Prome is up there in the dummy half position. And that one-handed pass that went astray, and the knock-on to be played. The Dale off the field and Henry on the field in the New Zealand lineup. The lock forward moves in to take it, but it'll have it into the scrum again. Australian ball to Fulton, and then the centre Cronin. Across to Rogers. Rogers out then to the winger, Bowstead. First time he's handled the ball. Did well to get it back again to Dorahy. Out it comes to the lock for the 5'8" Fulton. And it's a penalty to Australia. And Cronin moves in for the penalty kick at goal, and it's away to the right. So the score remains at Australia 2, Australia 3, New Zealand 2, and New Zealand bring the ball back to the quarter line for the dropout. Cronin, no kicks from 2 attempts. It's unusual for Cronin after his great kicking performance, particularly in the first test. And here's Bowstead, the right winger, straight onto the second row, ready. Back to Olling. 10 metres inside New Zealand territory, Donnelly. Johnny Lang's up there in the dummy half position this time. Oliphant and Fulton. Oliphant doubling round, and the ball put down as Cronin came flying through. And it's a New Zealand ball. Prome, the second row, to play it back to his hooker, Rushton, and then Proctor. Henry it is, in fact, the new player. That's the new player. Looks like Proctor, doesn't he? He's the really big man. He's as big as Proctor. So we've got 2 very big props out there for New Zealand today, and the Australians have stolen the ball. 8 metres inside New Zealand territory, Olling. Knocked off balance by Henry. Lang, and doubling round is Roddy with down the middle coming Donnelly. Lang. Now the second row making the run is Platts. Platts up into the dummy half position. There's John Lang now behind Platts. Oliphant, and Fulton's pass to Cronin alongside. Here's Dorahy into the line, and the fullback back inside to foot for Rogers. Rogers has support. There's Oliphant there. Back inside again to Reddy. Out further to the other second row, Platts. And Australia swinging the ball about. Outside and back inside again. New Zealand very thin out on that left-hand corner as it comes across to the winger across there, then to Roddy, further out there to the front row, Olling. Olling's looking towards Glover. Glover flies for the line, but he was offside, and it's a penalty to New Zealand.
Here it is now on the replay. That's Olling running with the ball. Hit by a New Zealand player, going to Glover. And for mine, Glover was in an onside position.
Second kick to be taken by New Zealand. The second or free kick. This is Varley, the right winger. Varley, usually a halfback, playing on the wing for the first time and in a test match too. And Henry was there, but it's the lock forward running through, Graham. This is the second row forward, Cole.
They're going one out at the moment, aren't they? They're not looking for the man to support the man with the ball.
This is Filipina. Williams in the dummy half position. Switched across then to the lockout wide. Prone, in fact. Williams. Dorahy. Centre field. Lang. And it's a penalty to Australia against New Zealand up inside the 5 metres. Mick Cronin coming in for the penalty shot at goal, 12 metres in from halfway, and the flags are up, and Australia go to a lead of 5 points to 2. After Williams to restart play. Over the quarter line, Ray Price, the Australian lock forward. Lang's up there, and this is Platts. Greg Platts getting the ball back to Donnelly. Yes, it's Donnelly.
That's just one player the Australian players can support, because he'll always turn in the tackle and look for support.
And the ball has been knocked on by Donnelly, so that's a scrum 30 metres out from the Australian line. Scrums 2-1 to Australia at this early stage. Add that into the scrum again. New Zealand ball, and Sterling up the side of the scrum. Graham, dummy half. John Smith, the 5/8 there to turn it on to Williams, losing it. The knock-on to be played.
And the crowd disagreeing with the referee.
It's a New Zealand ball from the scrum. This is Sterling. And it's a penalty to New Zealand against Oliphant up there.
New Zealand pleased to receive that penalty, I'm sure, will relieve the situation and give them ball possession up in an attacking area.
Williams' kick finds the line, 5 or 6 metres short of the halfway mark, as the hooker sends it on to O'Henry, or Proctor, putting O'Henry, taking it from Proctor and losing it. Australian ball with the lock forward Price in possession. Oliphant, the halfback's up in the dummy half position this time, and this is Rod Reddy. Turns it back again to the second row of Platts. 10 metres inside New Zealand territory. Lang, Oliphant. And there's the fullback into the line this time. Look at Dorahy racing away. He's got support inside. Picked up by the second row forward, Reddy, and Reddy races away for the second try for Australia.
And that was to Greg Oliphant. He was calling, timed it beautifully, and that's the way to time his run onto the ball. He wasn't too early that time. And a beautiful pass back inside, pulled the fullback right in and gave Rocket Reddy a clear run to the line.
Fulton's, Cronin's kick, and up go the flags, and Australia lead by 10 points to 2. And it's Williams to restart play as it goes about 20 metres inside Australian territory, with the second row of Platts just missing a pretty heavy tackle from the hooker Rushton, who raced through. And this is Price, the Australian lock. Ray Price running into Henry in number 15 jersey, and also the lock forward Graham was in there for the tackle. Johnny Lang's dummy half, and it comes on to Rod Reddy.
The Kiwis are tackling far too high. They've got to get around the legs of the Australians. One underneath and get a couple over the top.
And Oliphant doubling round as the player came racing through was Cronin. 5 metres short of halfway. Olling. Sterling and Proctor, the tacklers.
Oliphant fitting in very well with this Australian attack.
There's Oliphant now. And running onto the ball comes Roddy. Reddy, we have a Roddy plays in Queensland football. And Roddy and Reddy, it's pretty close, isn't it? Rod Reddy, this is Fulton, kicking for the line again. And a very tricky bounce for O'Hara, but a little bit of luck, it didn't go out. And the New Zealand left winger is tackled by Bowstead. And of course, that's a roar from the crowd for the Innisfail youngster who's done so well in Australian Rugby League this year. New Zealand in possession just inside their quarter line.
Just what's the Australian defence compared to the New Zealand defence, as Red was saying a moment ago.
And that's Henry. Rushton, the hooker's dummy half. And that's the second row forward, Frome, slipping it back, or trying to slip it back to his halfback. Frome stays with it. Smith, the 5/8 dummy half, as it goes across to Williams, and here's Proctor. Not making a great deal of progress. Williams. And out wide is Philip Heiner with that little kick, and taken by the Australian winger, Glover, Neville Glover.
Perfect position, Glover.
5 metres inside New Zealand territory, and running onto the ball is Greg Platts. Lang's dummy half. Now Donnelly, back to Lang again. 10 metres inside New Zealand territory. Donnelly, Oliphant, Fulton out there, and here's Cronin racing onto it. Back inside to Lang, and picks it up, but that delay cost the Australians dearly, probably, because there was a fair chance of breaking the line there. This is Donnelly. The 5th tackle indicated from referee Eddie Ward. Lang. Fulton. Further out then to the second row forward, and here's Cramer. And into touch. Freddie. Australian ball, doubling round. There's the fullback Fulton, with the 5/8 Fulton trying to dash through as there's a double round on. Second row Platts on. It comes to the second row forward. Ready, very nearly over, but forced back. Lang's in the dummy half position. Oliphant's there. Cronin's outside of him. And there's the nearly intercepted then as the winger O'Hara came flying through outside of Rogers. And referee ordering a scrum.
No, a penalty against Australia.
Yes.
It was against New Zealand holding onto a player, and I think it was Bobby Fulton who was being held and not allowed to dive onto the loose ball.
Cronin's penalty kick and has raised the flags, and that's 3 goals out of 5 attempts to Mick Cronin today. Australia leading by 12 points to 2 after 26 minutes of play. Williams restarts play for New Zealand. Down to Platts, has trouble with it. Down it's taken by Price. New Zealand fullback Jordan was limping slightly before as the ball comes on to Platts. Greg Platts tackled by Henry. First man in for the tackle. That's Olling in the dummy half position. Donnelly outside of him, but the dummy's on. And Olling well and truly wrapped up by the New Zealand player coming through as the lock forward. Now it's Fulton out wide then to a very high tackle then of Rogers. He certainly got the pretty hefty bump round the head. Certainly felt that one as it comes to Oliphant. Out then to Donnelly. Looking back to Rogers, shaking his head a little bit, but he's all right again, the Australian centre, just short of the halfway mark. Switch to the blind side again to Fulton, then to the lock forward Price. On it goes to Platts, losing the ball and picked up by O'Hara, the New Zealand left winger. Henry in the dummy half position.
First handling mistake from Australia, I was going to say.
Yes, and that's the lock, Graham, for New Zealand. Just over halfway, tackled by Donnelly, the first man in for the tackle, with assistance from another player, and there was the second rower, Ready. Sterling's there. Smith, the 5/8 outside of him. Further across to Jordan, who was limping before, as we mentioned. The New Zealand fullback has the ball 6 metres short of the halfway mark. Spun across then to the second row forward, Tony Cole. Then to the lock forward, Graham. And out to O'Hara. This is on the left wing. Looking for the support inside, but the player wasn't quite far enough up. It was the second row of Cole he was looking for, and it's into touch 12 metres inside Australian territory.
Steve Rogers, the injured player, looks like an ankle injury.
New Zealand ball, and the lock out of the scrum is Graham in possession. 3 green jerseys there, including Platts, and also 5/8 Fulton was in there very quickly. Now this is Williams, centre. Second row, Tony Cole. Looks for the support. It's a bad pass, picked up by Varley, that right winger. New Zealand is finding it very hard to make any real impression on this Australian defensive system, and as the pass comes on to Sterling, the halfback and captain, just over the halfway mark. Injured New Zealand player further back is Graham, the lock forward, but he seems all right again now, with Rogers still receiving some attention as Henry makes some ground up the middle, and that's the first best piece of progress we've seen from the New Zealand forwards for quite some time. 10 minutes before half-time, Australia leading 12-2 as Williams sends it back into Filipina. Filipina making a break, and a good break from Filipina. He's got the full-back to beat Doherty. Doherty takes him well, but he gets it back beautifully with the 5/8 Smith racing through, and he couldn't get the ball down. Double movement.
Here's the replay. Filipina now shows his elusiveness. He has a step off his left foot, gets past the early defence, gets to the fullback, taken in a good tackle here by Doherty as he tries to step past him, gets it up to Smith, and Smith's pulled down just short of the line, grounded there by Glover, I think it was, who made the final tackle.
And so it's Australia rucking it away a couple of metres out from their own line with Johnny Lang in the dummy half position. Rogers seems okay again as Olling takes on the New Zealand forwards. Rogers, of course, limping there, but he'll be all right again shortly, it seems. Lang's in the dummy half position for Australia. Swung across to Fulton. Fulton getting his boot to it over the halfway mark. That's O'Hara racing back. The New Zealand left winger, and slips it on to Varley, the right winger. Varley, normally a halfback, as we said before, gets the pass away to support second row Cole, and Cole is just back inside Australian territory with Prome up into the dummy half position. There's Prome. 8 minutes before half-time, Australia leading by 12 points to 2.
New Zealand still not supporting the ball carrier. They're still playing one out.
Rushton, and the 5/8 pass across to Williams, and there's the big front row forward, Proctor, 17 stone, and he got his pass to Sterling, who was outside of him, Ken Sterling, but well and truly wrapped up, and very quickly wrapped up too by Glover, who came in from the wing. Now, this is the centre, Filipina.
Has a good step off his left foot, Filipina.
And Filipina appealing to the referee. Australian ball.
New Zealand backline very flat there.
Posing locks in very quickly on each other there as it comes to Fulton. Further out then to Dorohey. Lang. And this is second row, Greg Platz. Lang, Oliphant, Fulton's out there. Here's the lock forward, Price, and then to Rogers. Rogers to the winger, Glover. Glover down that touchline and beats his opposite number. And there's another try coming up for Australia, the third one, and his second try as Neville Glover races around to put it down near the posts. And Australia lead 15-2.
Oh, whenever Australia play the ball wide to their three-quarters, they're causing a lot of trouble for New Zealand. Quick hands by the two halves. Brilliant play. Price coming in, taking the defence. A good pass here from Rogers as he made the running. Glover getting around this opposite number, fending him off, showing good determination and great strength, this fellow. And what a great debut he's had to Test football. A good try to Glover, but excellent work by the inside men. The two halves working very well together, Oliphant and Fulton.
A comment from Rich Gasnier.
Yes, well, this fellow, he's a flying winger from Parramatta. Neville, he's a determined fellow. He deserves his chance, and, well, we've seen his performance. He's very strong as we...
Cronin's conversion attempt. And hits the post and bounced back. That's how close it was. So 3 goals out of 6 attempts. Jordan. 20 metres inside Australian territory, and a high tackle then as a New Zealand player. It looked like a new player. In fact, it was Rushton, whose number's been torn. It now looks like a 17, but it's in fact 12, with the Australian player Price taking a pretty high tackle and left on the ground, injured still, Price, and the strapper has come onto the field to have a look at him with play being held up. With pretty hefty bump to the head for Rushton.
There it is on the replay. Oh, very high from Rushton. It was a forearm jolt, I think.
And after all that, the Kiwis take the kick and fine touch 10 metres out from the Australian line. Referee telling the Australians to get back the 5 metres as Farley, the winger, takes it up. Ken Sterling's there and moves on. It's Proctor taking it, the front row. Tony Cole's up there in the dummy half position. This time New Zealand in a scoring position. Smith, the 5/8, is there. Elects to go back down the middle, slipping it back to Sterling. Or did he? No, Sterling was there, but didn't get it. It's still the 5/8, John Smith with the ball. Rushton's up there in the dummy half position. Williams is there. There's the centre. And gets well and truly upended by Price, of all people. Price and Donnelly were the tacklers. Sterling is there. Across to John Smith, and here's Filipina. Very strong centre too. He certainly took some stopping then. 3 Australian players, including Fulton, hanging on to him. Tony Cole, the second rower, trying to step through for New Zealand. Only 5 metres out from the line, and that's the 6th tackle, the scrum to pack down. Australia leading 15-2. New Zealand ball, O'Hara. O'Hara, the left winger, tackled by Cronin and company. That's Proctor in the dummy half position. Tony Cole's in position to take it. There's Cole. Outside of him is the lock, Graham. Mark Graham to play it back for New Zealand, 12 metres short of halfway.
I think the New Zealand coach, Ronnie Ackland, will have to have a say to these players. They've got to get deeper, quicker play the balls. They're not getting up fast enough to play the ball. In the rucks, they seem to be standing, and they're not deep enough. And as we've said, we've been saying for some time, they're not supporting the man with the ball. They've got to do things a lot faster. The only bloke that looks like penetrating is the fellow with the ball now, Filipina. He's the only one that shows any penetration at all. And the forwards have got to work to suit him.
And it was on the final tackle in with New Zealand kicking, but Bobby Fulton, the Australian captain, has the ball 6 metres inside New Zealand territory. John Lang's up there into the dummy half position. Oliphant's outside of him and running onto it ready. Back inside, Dorohey. Very dangerous every time he handles the ball, Dorohey. After he settled down, he's having a very good game. This is ready. Out this Price. Across ready again, getting it across in the tackle. Very well done to the half-back. Fulton's there. Australia's got the man over now, but he swings it straight on to Glover. Glover races across, away from Barley's tackle, tries to get it back into Fulton, who's held by the jersey, and Fulton eventually gets back to dive on the loose ball. But it looked as if Australia would score for certain then, didn't it, in the corner, with the men over. Oliphant, the half-back, and Olling. Caught by Barley, and also the lock forward is in there as well. Now this is Donnelly. The Australian prop, 10 metres out from the New Zealand line, ready. And flying onto this crowd and running into a pretty high tackle, certainly stopped by Filipina and company. Filipina finishing with the ball as the half-time hooter is sounded, and that's it for half-time, with Australia leading New Zealand by 15 points to 2. New Zealand running from the southern end of the ground, and this is the second half restart play with the Australian fullback to run the ball up to the quarter line. Australia leading 15-2 at half-time, and it's a penalty to Australia against the New Zealand player trying to take the ball away in that play the ball. That was the second row of Prome, and so it's a penalty to Australia with Steve Rogers coming up to take the kick. Rogers takes the penalty kick for the line before this crowd of about 16,000 people, and finds touch about 10 metres short of halfway. Second kick from Lang to Oliphant, and Ray Price is there, and dummies on. Fulton further out wide then to Reddy, slipping it back in the tackle to Fulton. Platts, this is now up towards halfway, caught by Pram. Australians certainly moving the ball about. That's John Lang in the dummy half position now. Now Donnelly on the blind side.
New Zealand defence waiting.
And a penalty to Australia against the punch by Proctor. That referee indicating that the punch went in from Proctor.
I don't think doing things like that is going to help New Zealand. I think if they're going to do anything, they should put the Australian man on the deck. One fellow around his legs, another two up top. They can always hurt a fellow in a tackle a lot more they can with a punch.
Australia to take the second kick as Fulton holds it up, and down the middle comes Reddy. Trying to get the pass away. Price, the lock forward, and Price stepping through, almost through. Price racing through. The fourth try for Australia. Ray Price, and Australia lead 18-2.
Some poor defence from New Zealand, determination from Price. I thought when he turned back to the left, as he does now, he was running away from his support. I thought he'd made an error in coming back in there, but he shows a clean pair of heels, good determination, and some poor defence from New Zealand to score a try, and a great determined run. Initially, I thought he went the wrong way.
Cronin's kick, and up go the flags, and Australia go to a lead of 20 points to 2. Williams restarts play over the Australian quarter line and down to the Australian winger Kerry Bosted. Hasn't seen much of the ball in this game, Bosted. Just been that sort of a game as it comes on to the Australian centre, rather second row of Platts, and now here's Olling.
Wingers have days like that. The play seems to favour one wing. We've seen here Neville Glover scored 2 tries. Neville's seen a lot of the ball, where Kerry Bosted has had to sort of wait his opportunities.
And this is Donnelly.
Nearly in an offside position, Donnelly. One would have thought that after half-time we would have seen a lot more spirit in the New Zealand defence.
John Lang having a run, the Australian hooker. Back in the Australian Test side in this game for the first time for 2 seasons after missing out last year through injury. This is Rogers. And it's a penalty to New Zealand. Penalty kick for the line taken by Williams. 10 metres inside Australian territory, and it takes play about 12 metres out from the Australian line. Australia leading by 20 points to 2, and Proctor sends it back to Henry, the other big prop forward, and Barley losing the ball, picked up by Doherty, the Australian fullback, quick to snap up the loose ball. John Lang's into the dummy half position. And so New Zealand in a strong attacking position have lost the ball.
Just look at the difference between the attack of the two teams. There's that much more zip and cohesion in the Australian attack.
And this is the big prop, Graham Olling to Lang and Reddy. Lang, Olling. Fulton. Over the halfway mark. Jordan there, and pulls it down, the New Zealand fullback. Thus, New Zealand in possession, 10 metres inside New Zealand territory in centre field as the ball comes on to the centre, Filipino.
It's taken the majority of the New Zealand forwards at least 3 tackles to get back on side and to get into an attacking position. They're far too lethargic, New Zealand.
Williams playing it back to Sterling, then Rushton there. Outside of him comes Proctor, striding over the halfway mark. Mark Graham, the lock forwards in the dummy half position this time. And caught by Lang round the ankles and Olling over the top.
And in 5 tackles, New Zealand have done absolutely nil with the ball.
Williams, a little kick over the top. And Ray Price pulls it down, the Australian lock.
He loves those high ones, Ray Price. He's an expert with the bomb down there for Parramatta. He's scored a couple of tries on occasions from those up and unders.
Look at Doherty getting into the line, out to Bosted. Bosted, can he beat the full-back, but caught from behind, bounces away, and Bosted gets going again. Look at the New Zealand defence coming from behind him. But the crowd roaring as Bosted puts the ball down, and it's the 5th try to Australia, and Bosted has scored, the hero of the crowd here, and a thunderous reception from 16,000 people. Australia 23, New Zealand 2.
Here it is on the replay, and that's Doherty again, struggling out of tackles. He is the man that does all the setup here. And Bosted now getting away from the defence, coming back inside Filipino, and the defence getting tangled there with Bob Fulton. Bosted almost going down. Now, watch referee Ward go down here. No, he's just off camera. There he is, just off camera. Referee Ward was a casualty in that movement, but Bosted showing great determination and speed to score that try.
Cronin's kick. And up go the flags, and Australia lead by 25 points to 2 after 8 minutes of play in the second half.
Yes, well, in the first test, they did bomb 4 tries, and well, the difference is, I think, in this test that they've scored them. They're scoring tries, where they lost them in the first test.
Doherty is the danger man. Whenever he comes into the back line, he's creating a lot of problems for the defence.
And this is Bosted again. Doherty's up there, and now this time Donnelly. Lang, ready. Rod ready, taking a bit to stop. Olling and Oliphant's there, and Platts. Crunch is Fram, the second row, picked him up. Lang and Oliphant, and it's a 5/8. Oliphant again, and racing through comes Cronin. Back on again to Doherty. Doherty 10 metres short of halfway.
Look how Australia support the ball carrier.
Rogers, Oliphant, Fulton. Further out to Roger, to the lock forward from Cronin, and over halfway mark with 10 metres inside in New Zealand territory, and that's a 6 tackle. And it's on.
That's 2 big men.
Yes.
Proctor handling it very well.
Well, we're wondering when this was going to happen.
It's taken a long time, hasn't it?
My word.
Platts was heavily involved there. Greg Platts, the second rower.
Price was also in there throwing one over the top at Proctor.
Yes, it's the first real fire we've seen in this test match. Australia leading 25 points to 2 after just over 11 minutes of play in the second half, and referee Eddie Ward talking to his touch judge, who sends him back to the sideline and gives a penalty to Australia. Rogers to take the penalty kick, 28 metres out from the New Zealand line. Finds touch, a very good kick. Only 15 metres out from the line. Australia with the second kick. Fulton running around, and down the middle comes Price. Price just about through, struggles for the line, gets the ball down. Yes, his second try, Ray Price. Australia leading 28-2.
And what a great match he has had. Dual international, Ray Price showing great determination in a set move from the tap. Bob Fulton dictating terms around the rucks and around this tap penalty, holding up the ball, giving it to Price. Watch Price now, great determination, but weak defence here from New Zealand. As he gets to fullback Jordan. Jordan couldn't hold on to him, and he goes over to score the try, but
Mick Cronin, the kicker, attempting the conversion, and up go the flags, and Australia go to a lead of 30 points to 2. So it's a New Zealand centre Williams to restart play. A deep kick down to the Australian fullback was taken by Bosted, playing on the right wing still. Lang's into the dummy half position, the Australian hooker to Reddy on the blind side, and Platt's losing it. New Zealand ball. Henry. Locks there to Sterling, and this is Rushton coming down the middle. New Zealand hooker to play it back. Ken Sterling, the skipper of the side, is up into the dummy half position. Henry's out there, turned back. This is Henry now taking it back from the second row of Cole, it was.
Losing the ball too.
And lost the ball.
Far too slow, the New Zealand attack. They play the ball too slow, the pass is too slow, and the man running with the ball, not running with any great determination or speed.
Greg Platts is the Australian player in possession, the second row forward, as it comes on to Reddy. Rod Reddy to John Lang and Oliphant. Rushton was the man in for the second tackle up high, but the second row was the one round the legs. Now it comes across to Donnelly, and back it comes to the fullback, slipping into the line. Dorahy again. Certainly a fearless attacker, Dorahy, isn't he, as he comes into the line. And across to Reddy, having difficulties, but getting on to Cronin. Cronin gets out of the troubles he was in and does well on to Rogers. Rogers up towards the halfway mark. He's got Boasted outside of him, but Rogers racing away. New Zealand cover defence coming across. Rogers for the corner. Boasted inside, but Rogers scores it. And that's the 6th, 7th try for Australia. Australia leading by 33 points to 2.
Australia creating headaches for New Zealand out wide. Whenever they spin the ball to the three-quarters, there's trouble on for New Zealand. Cronin does very well here, gets the ball onto Rogers. Rogers careers away from the defence. A poor tackle there from the winger, not getting to him. Jordan couldn't get to him, just too much pace, and Rogers didn't need the support of Kerry Boasted, although he supported him all the way. Rogers too much speed for the defence and scores in the corner.
Cronin in for the kick, attempting the conversion of the try by Rogers, and it's waved away, so the score remains at Australia 33, New Zealand 2. Williams restarts play for New Zealand. Reddy.
Very stereotyped, all of New Zealand's play. Their kick-off, they haven't changed, they haven't tried anything different.
Donnelly.
There's no enterprise, is there? They're not putting any thought in their game at all.
Nobody's taking the initiative and trying anything different.
Oliphant. Fulton's there. Tackled by Henry, the big prop. Lang. Reddy. Turning round, as you can see, Cronin was covered. The ball wrenched away, picked up by Platts, the second row forward for Australia. Lang, Oliphant, and Reddy. The one-handed pass goes back to Platts and onto Fulton, who's dancing around. And on it comes to Price, who really got a heavy tackle with Rushton racing through, and Price copped another heavy tackle. As you remember, he was hit by Rushton earlier in the game, and it was a high tackle before. That one was a legitimate hard tackle as he came flying through.
Yes, that's more like the tackle New Zealand should be affecting on these Australian players. Good body contact.
This is John Lang. Price still left on the ground further back as the strapper gives him some attention there, looking pretty sick, Ray Price. Lang 12 metres short of the halfway mark. Oliphant's there. Outside of him, Fulton, switching play back to Platts. And the sixth tackle has come to pack down 30 metres out from the Australian line in centre field. And it's a penalty to Australia from the scrum. This has been replaced by Rod Morris. On the sideline, about to come out, Rod Morris, the Queensland and eastern suburbs from the premier team in Brisbane. Rod Morris about to replace a very sick Ray Price. In 15 jersey, the penalty kick for Australia finds touch 5 metres short of halfway. The second kick to Australia, Oliphant and Fulton. Oliphant doubling round, Olling.
One wonders the makeup of this Australian pack now, whether it'll be Reddy or Platts going back to lock forward. Both can play the position.
Oliphant, and this is Cronin. Platts, dummy half. Oliphant, Fulton. Gets away from the tackle in from Fulton, doing very well. It was the hooker that raced through again. Pass, beautiful pass out to Glover. Glover racing for the corner. The fullback comes across and puts him into touch. A nice tackle from Chris Jordan, the New Zealand fullback. Australian ball, Oliphant. Saw his supports were covered, so went down with the ball, ready into the dummy half position, the second row forward. There's Fulton. Cronin outside of him, Cronin back inside, and caught by Prone, the second rower, with assistance. The hooker's pass, ready. And swung across then to Cronin. Sterling in company of the tacklers of Cronin. John Lang's in the dummy half position. Oliphant, Fulton, and here's Dorothy into the line with Rogers running into a very good tackle by Philip Piner. Oliphant's up there in the dummy half position this time. Donnelly's onto it and getting it back to Morris. The new player on the field, Rod Morris. Lang and Fulton. A little kick across the front of the goal mouth, and it's snapped up by the lock forward for New Zealand.
Well, it was obvious in that last try, Reg. It was Fulton who determined that the men on the outside were unmarked.
And the dropout from New Zealand takes play down to the Australian halfback Oliphant, who looked towards his winger. Australia in possession 30 metres out from the New Zealand line as Olling, the front row forward, takes it up.
New Zealand defence waiting, not moving up to put Australia under any pressure at all now.
Lang to Oliphant, Fulton, Oliphant, and Reddy down the middle. Reddy breaking away from the tackle, and Rod Reddy's got support. There's Cronin racing through, but only 5 metres out. The Australian centre to play it back. Dorothy's up there behind him. Switched across to Fulton, then to Reddy. Reddy looks for the support. Morris alongside of him, but Reddy loses the ball. Fulton picks up the loose one, gives it on to the winger Glover. He takes a high tackle again from Rushton, right round the top of the head, and it's a penalty to Australia.
And the fiery Glover not liking that at all, slipping into Rushton and giving him a bit for his quarter too.
Australia taking the about to take the quick penalty, started taking it, and now the referee holds up play and he calls out Rushton
for a caution. But there we saw Bob Fulton again, really dictating play, able to stand in the tackle and in fact tell Glover where to run. He actually stood there and said back in here, and Glover followed directions and came in nicely.
Mick Cronin moves in for the penalty kick at goal for Australia. It's a very good kick indeed, straight down the middle, and Australia lead New Zealand by 35 points to 2. Williams to restart play for New Zealand. Deep kick into Australian territory, down to Bowstead. And Bowstead still going. It cleared the quarter line and eventually runs into the big man Henry. Olling's up there in the dummy half position. Proctor and Henry are the tacklers then, the two prop forwards. Now it's Fulton and Donnelly alongside of him. John Lang, Oliphant, and Cronin. Oliphant's there, ready. Rod Reddy, originally from Rockhampton in Queensland, who plays with the St George Club in Sydney. He's having a very good game here today with Bobby Fulton putting it over the top. O'Hara running back, but it's out on the full, but just, it was a very close one. And Australian ball with Oliphant almost losing it, managing to hold the ball. Fulton dummy half this time. Glover is the winger from the left wing coming in, and caught by Prame and company. Prame over the top, Sterling underneath. Lang is there, Donnelly outside of him, but Lang not allowed to run. Greg Platt's up into the dummy half position this time. And back to Morris. Rod Morris, who toured New Zealand with the Australian side last year from Eastern Suburbs Club in Brisbane. This is Oliphant, and now Reddy looking to pass the ball, but wrapped up by Mark Graham, the New Zealand lock. Olling's there, and Fulton. Jordan's underneath it, and takes it well with another New Zealand player, Sterling it was, getting back there with him as Jordan brings it up towards the quarter line, but tackled by Reddy by Cronin. Rushton, and running off him is Tony Cole. Back to Rushton again. Not Rushton, it was the fullback, in fact Jordan, they look a little bit alike, as Proctor takes it this time. Henry's in the dummy half behind Proctor, and
well, it's 4 rucks New Zealand have had, and it's all been one out.
New Zealand ball. This is Williams. Not a great deal of imagination in the attack, to say the least. 10 metres short of the halfway mark was Sterling putting it over the top and following through. It's worth trying, I suppose, and Barley picks it up, the winger. So that was worth a try, wasn't it? So the 10 metres inside Australian territory on the 6th tackle. The scrum to pack down. Australia leading 35-2, about 8 minutes before the end of the game.
Glover.
Australian ball out to Fay, and this is Bosted. And picked up the intercept by Pram, the New Zealand second row. And he loses the ball and is gathered by Australia fullback Dorahy.
Comedy of errors.
It's into touch on the halfway mark. Scrum to pack down. Australia 35, New Zealand 2. Having trouble with the scrum.
Greg Oliphant lightly disputing ball possession or the feeding of the scrum.
Australian ball as it goes to Fulton, further out then to Rogers, and Rogers over halfway. Announcement on the public address system: Rod Reddy has been awarded the man of the match. Rod Reddy, what an excellent game he's had too, as the fullback's pass goes out to Craman.
I'd go along with that selection. Reddy has had a terrific game. He's played great football, but I'm sure they would have thought of John Dorahy too in their selections.
Yes, indeed. He's had an excellent game in his first test match. John Dorahy, as the referee comes across and awards a penalty to Australia about 26 metres out from the New Zealand line.
There have certainly been some good players for Australia. Bob Fulton, the man now carrying the ball, must have been in contention for that, for the player of the match, because he's been the brains of the Australian attack around the edge of the ruck particularly.
Fulton takes that little kick for the line, taking play just up to the New Zealand quarter line, giving Australia plenty of room in which to manoeuvre. Johnny Lang's in the dummy half in the second tap position as Donnelly takes it. Back it comes to Olling. Australia 18 metres out the New Zealand line. Lang is there, Oliphant, Fulton's there, doubling round Oliphant, and Platt's down the middle. Losing the ball in the tackle, New Zealand ball. So that was a move that failed, with Platt's losing the ball. It's the 5/8 John Smith to play it back to Rushton, and running onto the ball comes the second row, Frame. Just outside the New Zealand quarter line, with Australia certainly home and hosed in this second test, and have the series well and truly at their mercy, is Ken Sterling, the veteran New Zealander. He's the oldest in this team at 28 years of age, from Auckland, playing the ball back as it comes across to the lock now, Graham. Fulton over the top, and underneath was Platts, and one of the first men in there for the tackle. This is Tony Cole. Fifth tackle indicated from referee Eddie Ward. Proctor's up in the dummy half position, and it's a penalty New Zealand against Donnelly.
Donnelly not allowing the man to play the ball, but we saw again 5 rucks from New Zealand, and it was only 1 out every time, and even Ken Sterling, the halfback, had no support, and it's unusual that you'd see a halfback at the edge of the ruck without any support.
New Zealand over the halfway mark as Proctor sends it back to Henry. Sterling, and this is Williams, centre. Dennis Williams. Australia 35, New Zealand 2, 4 minutes before the end of the game. Sterling, and switch back then to Filipina. Very speedy centre, Filipina, Rushton, Smith, the 5/8. John Lang has won scrums for Australia 6-1 in the second half. And we'll give you the overall scrum shortly, as the New Zealand lock, Graham, loses the ball in the tackle. It's picked up by Reddy. Reddy looks to Bosted, but couldn't get it away when he wanted to. Away it goes to Bosted now. Bosted races away, beats the winger, and it's a second try for Kerry Bosted coming up. Listen to the roar from this crowd of 16,000 as Bosted puts the ball down for his second try in the second test, and Australia lead by 38 points to 2.
That try coming from a mistake from New Zealand as Rocket Reddy picked up the loose ball, drew the defence beautifully. Watch him now on the replay. Gets away from that defensive tackle, but now draws in the defence and sends Bosted away clear, and he has too much space for the defence. Varley, the winger, comes now, and watch Bowstead stand him up in a change of pace. Stops and goes again, and Varley just had no chance of getting to him. There was no need for him to do that, but he just made sure of the try.
And so Australia have scored 8 tries to 0, leading 38 points to 2. Australia won the first Test match in Sydney by 24 points to 2, so it's a much more convincing victory here today with Cronin to take the kick at goal. Comment from Reg Gaston.
Still New Zealand unable to score a try in both these games, but that was good work, and we can understand why Rocket Reddy was judged man of the match. It was beautiful work there, the way he held the ball back. He drew Dennis Williams out of his defensive pattern and gave the ball beautifully to Kerry Bowstead to do the rest. He's enjoying himself, isn't he, Kerry?
McCronin attempting the conversion, and it's flagged away, so the score remains at Australia 38, New Zealand 2, about 2 minutes before full time. Cronin has now kicked 7 goals from 12 attempts in this match.
It must be a pleasure for a winger to play with a side such as this Australian side, with the inside backs working so well and the centres setting up the 3 quarters for the men on the outside, the 2 wingers just finishing off. It must be a pleasure for them.
And it's Williams to restart play for New Zealand, straight down the middle to Dorahy. On Dorahy over the quarter line, tackled by Sterling and also the lock forward Mark Graham. John Lang's into the dummy half position for Australia. Oliphant's there, Fulton's outside of him, and there's Reddy, and a pass knocked down from Reddy. Fulton tries to pick it up. The New Zealand player racing through is O'Hara as Reddy toes it out, and it's going to be a dropout from the goal mouth.
In the dying minutes of the match, Australia are appearing a little complacent about it all, and don't seem to be 100% flat out in the dying stages.
No, I'm wondering about this. Is this a penalty? Is a penalty try being awarded because the New Zealand player was held by the jersey?
Yes,
definitely. O'Hara it was the man. Let's see if we could see it again.
Right, if we can see that on the replay, Oliphant's the man that impedes the progress of O'Hara, the winger, and a penalty try has been awarded. And I didn't see the indication of referee Ward. Normally he'll go to the spot, mark the spot, and then the touch judge will go under the centre of the post because the attempted conversion. Here it is now. Now, if we could go back a little further in that replay, we'll see O'Hara, number 5, impeded in his progress.
And there's the kick. And Jordan raises the flag, so that takes the New Zealand tally to 7. Australia 38, New Zealand 7.
Here it is now. That's we'll see Rod Reddy, I think it is. He'll lose the ball. There's Reddy going back for the ball. All of the other Australians are offside. O'Hara towing the ball forward, and there's Oliphant holding on to him. Now, there must have been no doubt in the referee's mind that the try would have been scored. There was certainly some in mind, but it caught us by surprise that he didn't go there and mark the spot and then award the try.
And Varley has trouble with it for New Zealand from the kick-off, as it's gathered eventually by Filipino, but the knock-on has been ruled, and that's the full-time hooter sounding, and the referee said that's it for the Test match. Australia have defeated New Zealand by 38 points to 7, scoring 8 tries to 1. And let's look at the scrums, the overall scrums to favour Australia by 13 to 7. So Australia dominated second half scrums in particular, winning the overall scrums by 13 to 7. The penalties favoured Australia 11-9. 11-9 the penalties to Australia, and we only had, as far as scrum penalties were concerned, 1 to each team. Cronin kicked 7 goals from 12 attempts, and the Australian try scorers, we saw Price scored 2, Bowstead 2, Glover 2, Reddy and Rogers 1 each. The New Zealand try scored by O'Hara. The other details we've given you, Jordan kicked 2 goals from 2 attempts for New Zealand. As we mentioned, Cronin 7 out of 12. The first scorers in the game for Australia, Neville Glover, number 5, and 1 for New Zealand, Chris Jordan.
They failed to put the man on the ball. It was Australia were in possession, were able to keep that ball alive. They had plenty of support. They had the ability to get that ball across the field and open it out wide, and because they had their wingers and centres to do the rest, they had plenty of speed. And I agree with what you say in that engine room. I think there's one fellow there, Olling played in that first Test, but I think you've got to give full marks to John Donnelly.